Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're tackling a massive, kind of frustrating, and frankly, point-losing pitfall in academic referencing. I'm talking about the Harvard database citation dilemma. It's a trap so many of us fall into, right? Citing the database you use to find a document instead of citing the actual source itself. Now, it sounds like a tiny detail, but as we're going to see, it completely changes the integrity of your reference list.
So, here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the citation identity crisis. Then, we'll cover the database exception, followed by the anatomy of a database citation. And finally, surviving unstable session URLs. All right, starting with part 1, the citation identity crisis, or who actually created the content.
Consider this the absolute golden rule of database citations, and it goes like this. Usually cite the specific item retrieved from a database rather than citing the database as though it created the content. Basically, this is all about separating the container from the creator. Think of a database as, well, it's like a giant, highly organized digital filing cabinet. It holds the work, sure, but it definitely didn't write it. If you credit the database as the creator, you're literally robbing the actual author of their hard work. Plus, it really confuses anyone trying to follow your research trail. Your citation absolutely has to reflect the original source, not just the search engine you happen to use to find it.
To put that into perspective, a source's identity is absolute. Let's say you find a journal article in a database. Well, it remains a journal article. A company report found in that exact same database, it remains a company report. Its core nature doesn't just magically change because it was pulled from a digital database. When you're writing out your reference, you have to format it for what it truly is, a journal or a report, and not just lump it in as some generic database entry.
Moving right along to part 2, the database exception, or when the database is the target. Now, this brings up a really critical question. But when is the database the actual source? I mean, if we literally just spent the last few minutes telling you not to cite the database, when are you actually supposed to do it? Well, you only cite the database itself in a few highly specific exclusive scenarios. For example, are you analyzing the structure of the database itself? Or maybe you're looking at a dataset housed entirely within that one system. What if it's a specific search result, or some completely proprietary record that just exists nowhere else? In those exclusive cases, and honestly only those cases, citing the database itself is actually the right move. Why? Because in these situations, the container basically becomes the content you're studying. Okay, part 3, anatomy of a database citation, or building the perfect reference. So, let's say you find yourself in that rare exception we just talked about. You're going to need exact precision. Think of this next part as the 7-part database citation recipe. And trust me, if you miss an ingredient here, your academic cake is going to fall flat.
Here is exactly how these puzzle pieces fit together. First, you need the responsible author or provider. Second, the year. Third, the record or dataset title. Fourth, you need the database name itself. Fifth, the version or identifier. This is super important so someone knows exactly which iteration you looked at. Sixth, the URL or access route. And finally, 7th, your access date, if it's required. Checking off these 7 elements ensures your reader can retrace your exact steps. If you're citing a dataset or a proprietary record, this 7-part structure is your absolute gold standard for clarity.
Which brings us to part 4, surviving unstable session URLs, or escaping the dead link trap.
All right, listen up, because an unstable session URL is a temporary access route that you absolutely must avoid when generating a database reference. You know when you log into a university library or a specific database portal? Well, the URL up in your browser is usually tied to your specific temporary session. The very moment you log out, that link dies. Poof, gone. And there is nothing worse than a professor trying to grade your paper, clicking your link, and just hitting a big 404 error page. Escaping this trap and making sure you have a permanent access route is, quite literally, a matter of academic survival.
But don't worry, to make this incredibly easy for you, here's a foolproof 3-step procedural solution to generate the perfect Harvard reference based on everything we've covered today. Step 1, identify the actual source type. Remember, is it a journal article, a report, or one of those rare dataset exceptions? Step 2, avoid those unstable session URLs we just talked about. You've got to find the permanent link or DOI. And step 3, use the Harvard Reference Generator at harvardreferencegenerator.co.uk. Once you've identified the true source and secured a stable link, this tool is going to perfectly format your citation for you. It saves you time and ensures you don't lose any silly marks on formatting technicalities.
So as you jump into writing your next research paper, I want you to ask yourself, will your next citation point to the creator or just the container?
Keep this mental flowchart handy, always respect the actual source material, and you'll never fall for the database dilemma again. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.